Good evening. Hi, we're just getting a couple people in, and I think we'll be ready to start. All right, cool. We got everybody.
Hey,
Welcome.
everybody.
How are you doing, Gene? How are you doing, Dan?
Oh, good. Wonderful. Thanks.
Hi.
We have a simple agenda tonight. We just have one item, and I think it's potentially very easy, but it's never, as far as I remember, been something that we've specifically handled. So yeah, this is what month is it? February 2025 ANC 1C Alcoholic Beverage Control and Public Safety Committee. Let's jump right into it. The one agenda item is there's a business has applied for new retailers Class C restaurant liquor license for C&M Ramen at 2479 18th Street. It's a business that's just changing ownership. So there's not actually, as far as I know, much change, but I've never really gone through this specific type of application. So I just want to make sure that we're able to let the representatives of the business give us a bit more information about what their plans are and see if I imagine they want our support. I think they're requesting a stipulated license, so they would need ANC support in order for that to happen. But we'll just go straight to that. I think the one person representing is Laura, so if we could raise them up and just hear for your words. Doesn't have to be too long, but just kind of, I think there's a hand raised. Perfect, yeah. Good evening, how are you doing?
Oh, I didn't have my audio on either.
That's all good.
Um, hey, how are you all doing?
Doing really well. Really appreciate you coming tonight, and it's good to see you. How are you?
Sure, yeah, you too. So basically, Akira Ramen and Izakaya is it had a previous owner. It has changed hands, and the new owner is applying for a liquor license. They haven't been selling liquor. It would be about a 9% increase in sales, but that would only be about 25. They're estimating about 25 beer or sake a day. It's a pretty small place. I don't know if you guys are familiar. I have pictures if you want to see pictures. Just pictures, a few pictures, the menu and the outside and the inside. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much it. The owner's anxious to start selling, spirits, wine, and beer, but he does expect most of his sales will be beer and sake. And again, 25, maybe 25 bottles a day, estimate.
That's good to know. That's the place next to the comedy club and McDonald's, right? Squeezed in between those.
I don't know because I've never actually been there. We've been doing all this for work remote, but
Really get it
yeah,
from them.
it's
Yeah.
oh okay, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I really appreciate that. I mean, just to clarify, the applicant is just looking to add essentially alcohol to their menu, and it's simultaneously happening. I think in email you'd mentioned there's property management change or something, or
Yeah, there was property management change. I'm not exactly sure when because that would happen before we took them on as a client.
okay.
But it was probably within the last year. Yeah,
Okay, so this is kind of just like the tail end of a transition and adjusting their business model.
exactly. Exactly.
No, that's
Yeah.
perfect. I mean, it's not can you remind me of the hours of operation and the
I believe it's 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. or
uh,
12 p.m. on Saturdays.
so it's something
Something
that
like
closed substantially earlier than the neighboring bars and taverns and places. So
exactly.
I find it
Exactly.
not particularly controversial at all. So that's good.
Okay. Okay, got it.
So yeah, that's my questions for now. Commissioners, you have anything else? Questions, comments? And
Um,
especially it's the first time with the three of us on this particular committee. So if you have any questions about like procedural stuff, I can help with. Feel free.
Okay.
Commissioner Michelson Horowitz had something.
yeah, does the owner have a consent agreement or with
It's a
the
good question.
neighborhood?
I don't think so. It does because they haven't sold liquor in the past, right? So there's no settlement agreement in place, I'm pretty sure.
um,
Sorry,
you
talking
know,
about it.
Yeah.
Uh, we're transferring we're technically trying to transfer the liquor license, but then we ended up having to do a new license. So they did previously sell liquor. As for a neighborhood consent, that wasn't part of the application. So if you guys need us to do that, let me know.
It's pretty simple. I'll
Like
double check
in-
if one's in place. If
uh-huh.
it's a new license, yeah, I'll double check with ABCA. It's
Okay.
a settlement agreement. It used to be called a voluntary agreement. It's basically any place that sells now cannabis and alcohol can voluntarily enter into a contract with neighboring institutions. Like there's certain criteria. So an ANC is one of them. And it's
Okay.
just to say, okay, we will support your restaurant or wherever selling alcohol in exchange for this stuff. And that stuff is usually like, make sure you take out the trash this often, make sure that the people aren't overserved, make sure you're following the law. I mean, it's usually pretty simple. Sometimes with bigger
Right.
places, probably wouldn't be applicable here, but like a place that expects to have a few hundred or thousand patrons in a night, sometimes it can get kind of tense and people will negotiate it sometimes over months to try to make it so that you can find a middle ground. But
We
there's
did
different
just
institutions that I've negotiated these for that would be, I think, pretty similar model for a restaurant of this size. So it's pretty easy.
Okay, we did disclose like elementary schools and childcare locations in the area within I believe it was a 1 mile radius or something like that.
That's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's a good question. So we'll look into that because
Okay.
because we have to officially vote as a commission, and our next full
Okay.
committee meeting is March
Mhm.
5th. So we got a few weeks, so we can look into that.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
Commissioner Wood, do you know if we have a policy in this, uh, in this term on whether we request that?
I mean, it's up to us. I mean, there's not any like hard rules in the past. It's changed a few different times just on what different commissioners had wanted to do. But in the past, we've done a lot of settlement agreements in Adams Morgan. But in the last couple of years, it's been for different reasons less so. There's also neighborhood organizations that have official standing to be able to do that. They often will reach out and try to do that. Sometimes uh, on easy terms, sometimes on a bit difficult of terms. Well, it's just that's out of our control. But
Mhm.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
yeah, that's something that we can discuss as a committee and as a commission as well. Just if because we don't, there's no enforcing a settlement agreement to be put in place. Sometimes they're really easy and really nice, just for kind of mutual trust, just to have something on paper. So if
Mhm.
that's the case, we can move forward. But we'll just discuss that as commissioners, I think. How does that sound?
Yeah, sure, that works for me. I just, I didn't know if we as a committee want to come to the commission with a position on whether to continue that practice. Um, if you think it's been beneficial, I'm curious about your experience.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a good place to discuss that. Is we're going to make an official recommendation. Before I do that, Commissioner Evans, do you have any questions
Yeah,
or comments? I don't want to leave you on this. No pressure, but if you do.
No, no, not at all.
So
um,
yeah,
I'm good.
go
yeah, I
ahead.
mean, about this specific application, uh, we haven't had there haven't been any like complaints against the restaurant recently that I'm aware of.
No, not that we're aware of, and no violations
Mhm.
i- from DC. So
Right. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That's probably, very happy to support local businesses and make Adams Morgan a destination. I just want to, have neighbors who, have followed the law,
oh
get our
yeah,
support.
yeah.
Um,
Agree.
okay. Yeah,
And
I've got no concerns, with supporting the application, myself. So I'm good.
I'm the same. And like back to the settlement agreement thing, we don't have to make it like it doesn't really matter if the committee makes an official
Yeah.
suggestion or not. We can do it as a commission. The disadvantages to a settlement agreement in my mind is burdensome or disadvantageous if it just creates a burden on everybody and doesn't really produce much. Like half of the settlement agreement language or more is often just, hey, we really want you to obey the law under the pretext that the business owners get really stressed thinking that this is this really important document, which may or may not be the case. And sometimes it's easy, and I don't think it's harmful to just put it into place just so there's like official language, especially in the event that a license would get transferred or something. so that the
Mhm.
new ownership would just have the same statutes put into place officially as opposed to like an honored code kind of thing. But there's a lot of vacant commercial properties, and like it's not to say deregulation is, in my mind, like what we should push for, but it's just like selective, moderate, I guess, kind of regulation in the sense that we don't want to create a burden on a thing that's already really difficult. And having locally owned small businesses, I think, is a pretty well-supported thing, and the margins are often very thin, and paying lawyers to do stuff can often cut into those margins. So I'm aware of that.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know. I
Okay.
don't have a preference if we recommend. You got any thoughts, commissioners, in terms of a settlement agreement? We can just pursue one in the meantime without a recommendation too.
Right. I don't think it's, I don't think it's necessary. Personally, I would, I understand that KCA has, their own authority to enter them and negotiate them. And of course to, um, object to, a license, if they don't, feel satisfied. Personally, I think that it is burdensome for most applications, and for certain kind of licenses perhaps, or businesses that have a history of any kind of violation. uh, um it's, I think it could be, um you know uh, uh I don't know, rehabilitative rather than, than proactive, in terms of the amount of work for the benefit that we get as a commission. Um, yeah, I'm open to other people's opinions.
Yeah, I mean, like the deeper question, I think we could like it's probably appropriate for like the full commission, not necessarily here, which is
Mhm.
what is the direction of Adams Morgan commercial investments? And like it's related to the moratorium zone and questions like that, which is not, I guess, super germane to this conversation here. So I don't want to waste too much of your time, Laura. But
Right.
uh, yeah, similar. We also a settlement agreement. We don't have to. They don't need to be agreed before the protest period for a
Right.
placard. It can be done at any point in time. So in the event that we change our minds, or in the
Yeah.
event that we decide not to pursue one right now and later change our minds as a commission, we can always do that. And they're pretty simple. But I have similar thoughts. Commissioner Evans, you got any questions or thoughts on this issue? Because I know that settlement agreements might be something that's a little bit newer to you, so I want to make sure that it makes sense.
Yes, making total sense. Like, yeah. I don't have anything to include, but yeah, definitely just want to know more information on how all this works. I'm new to ABC, and again, Peter, I think that's something you and I need to spend more time on. So
That's perfect.
moving forward, I'll, know more about it. But yeah, if there's no any violations or anything, I don't see any problems with moving forward.
Perfect.
Yeah. Are there any public comments on this application?
Yeah, that's a good point. Anyone in attendance, if you have any questions or comments at this time, please raise your hand. If not, that's okay. Well, if you don't have any, if you don't raise your hand, but you have one, that's not as okay. All right, so seeing that there are no comments, I'll move that we support, or that we recommend to our full commission, our for March 5th meeting, supporting stipulated and full license. I mean, it's a good place. And not everything should be based on personal commissioner bias, but I like the food and I like sake and I like the ownership. So I want to be supportive to the fullest legal extent I'm allowed to. And as far as a settlement agreement, I guess we can discuss as a commission if that's something we want to invest time into, but at this time, leave it off to the side, I guess. Can I get a
Yeah.
second?
Second.
All right, thanks. Any last comments, questions on this? All right, motion on the floor is the recommendation for the full commission in March. All's in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Passes 3-0. All right, so yeah, we'll be in touch. Laura, you don't have to send anyone
Okay.
to the March meeting if you don't want to. Of course, feel free. It's a public meeting, but you've
Oh,
got a lot
okay.
tonight, so I feel
Okay.
satisfied. And if you have any
Okay,
questions or
great.
please let us know. Thank you. Have the
All
email.
right, great. Thank you so much.
All right, have a good evening.
Have a good evening, everyone.
simple meeting. That concludes. Any last comments? That makes sense, commissioners? And we can
Yeah.
talk more offline too. So Gene, I can discuss
We
some
are,
of the.
Yes, please, if you have some availability this week, that would be great.
I'll find
If-
time.
If
if we move to support at the full commission, without the stipulation of a settlement agreement, you said that we could then, I mean, we can still come back and work on one, but we've already voted to support it without that stipulation. So,
Basically, what I can tell, like the little leverage that an ANC can have, or any institution that's like allowed to, so like neighbors in an abutting property, as well as like a civics or a citizens association in the neighborhood withstanding. Like the leverage that those groups can have is being able to protest the liquor license during the protest period. So if that period passes, we can still do a settlement agreement, but we just have less leverage if we want leverage to say, hey, sign this agreement or else we're going to protest this, which is the ANC 1C like years and not that long ago, before I started, but not that much before, would pretty regularly do that, which kind of raises the question of if it's actually protesting or if it's just using the mechanisms in place to be able to say, hey, we want to extend the period that we're negotiating the settlement agreement, and hopefully we come to an agreement so we can drop the protest because we don't actually want to protest, but we just want to get an agreement in place. Hasn't really happened in the last couple of years with us, so that's been, I think,
I'd be interested in talking briefly, and it can be offline. We're not making any decisions about which kinds of licenses and which kinds of businesses are would benefit the most from a settlement agreement with the neighborhood. I don't know what our discretion there is, but I feel like we have pretty broad discretion on whether to request one from a business, and I don't think it's worth our effort in every case. Um, of course, KCA might feel differently, but a business that is a tavern license, or that abuts residential properties, or that if there's been any prior complaints, or if it's an entirely new business, where there's no history of being a good neighbor. Those are the cases where I think we might benefit from working on a settlement agreement. But something where there's it's an existing business, and it's in the commercial strip, and and that kind of thing. If it's not a tavern, it's mostly food. Yeah, I'm curious to talk about it, but I don't know that I feel the need to have a settlement agreement in every case.
No, I agree. And we can, like you said, we can discuss this elsewhere, but from what I can tell, there was never like an official written in some sort of document, this is ANC 1C's policy or protocol. Besides, I think maybe if it exists, let's try to make a settlement agreement. That was, I think, slightly before I started, and then kind of carried over a bit. And then it kind of in the last few years has faded to more of the approach that you're kind of discussing. So
Okay.
because it's like it's not just for the businesses, but also for the commissioners. It can often be like, speaking as someone who's negotiated multiple settlement agreements, it can often be simple. Sometimes it can be kind of time consuming, and then you get through it, and then you see that the business ends up kind of having to cease operations anyway because we're having a hard time, and that was just an extra layer of bureaucracy for them to navigate. Which is not to say that's what puts people out of business, but it's not necessarily helpful depending on the situation. So
Yeah. And to the extent that we have a form that is reasonable, that we can, invite, people to sign, and, with hopefully as little, individual modification as possible, but, something that, that is reasonable, and not restrictive on their activities, and not onerous, but in terms of whatever it's trash, or noise mitigation or whatever.
I agree. And a lot of I think, political, or I don't know, just like community incentive to do settlement agreements and Asmorean, I think stems from 25 years ago or so, where the bar scene was quite a bit different and a bit rowdier, and also just different types of establishments and just a lot different neighborhood dynamic than is currently in place.
And
for better or for worse.
yeah, and I feel like as you mentioned, there are a lot of empty storefronts, and I think our neighborhood is most vibrant when those are filled, and when those properties are not an invitation to, you know, crime, or to you know, or just blight that then, you know, makes the neighborhood less inviting to you know, anyone who would frequent our restaurants and bars. So anyways, yeah, don't want to make any administrative burden for any aspiring local business owners.
Any last thoughts, Gene? All right. Thank you.
Yes,
both.
I agree.
you're on mute.
Exactly. As much as we can, we need this 18th Street to be more inviting and inclusive. And you know, today just, you know, getting out and just seeing all the empty storefronts, you know, yeah, it's a little depressing. So yeah, so as much as we can, let's try and be more inclusive and whatever we can to get business to open and be enticed. Let's do that with liquor license and whatever. So yes, that's my thought.
Oh, perfect. All right. Well, I guess that counts as a short meeting still, 20 minutes. All right.
Yep.
Good to see you
Thank you
both.
very much.
Talk to you later. And I'll message you, Gene, and we'll figure out something. Talk to you both. Good night.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Peter.
Thanks.
Good night.
Mhm.